Perfect.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Healthy Cooking with Bronson. We are so happy you're here. And boy, today is a rainy day here in West Michigan, so we are very excited about today's menu. This is the Great Grilled Cheese class. So, and I hear there's some soup happening with it. And so we have a lovely class for you today. And our guest chef today is Chris Flood. I'm going to let her introduce herself. She does a better job of it than I do. I am Amy Nichols, campus coordinator at the Campus for Creative Aging, a division of Region 4 Area Agency on Aging. Like I said, we're very happy to have you here, and we appreciate it if you kind of stay muted when Chris is talking, so that everybody can follow along and hear what she says. If you did not get the recipes for today, reach out to me on that email you got the Zoom link on, and I'll make sure you get them because these are keepers today. All right, Miss Flood, over to you.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. Boy, it's been a while since I've done this. I don't know, crazy day. We're trying to do something with two cameras today, so bear with us. If it works, great, and if it doesn't work, we'll tweak it next time. But for now, you're looking at me, and I'm Chris Flood. I am the health education supervisor at Bronson. And I teach a lot of the healthy cooking classes, some nutrition classes, some physical activity promotion, some other health education classes, along with Isabel Hinton, who is on this call as a participant and co-host as well. So today we are making grilled cheese sandwiches. So some people might say, why are they doing a health education class about grilled cheese? But actually, grilled cheese can be a healthy sandwich. And we're going to talk about some ingredients to make it healthy, specifically about different types of bread and different types of cheeses and different types of add-ins. And my idea is that you will go away with one new way to make a grilled cheese and some ideas for some other fabulous grilled cheese combinations. So what goes better with grilled cheese than tomato soup? Probably some of you think something else goes better, but I really like grilled cheese and tomato soup. So we're going to be starting off with making a 30-minute tomato basil soup. We're going to get that simmering, and then we're going to walk through our grilled cheese, right? Because a grilled cheese only takes 10 minutes. So I've got some really simple ingredients today for the soup in front of me. So if you're following along in the recipe, I'm going to go through the ingredients first. Then, if all goes well, Amy is going to spotlight the other camera, and we're going to go back to the stove and cook. I'm not 100% sure if you're going to be able to hear me very well back there, but we will work it out. I'll try not to talk too much back there. So first, our ingredient list. I'm starting off with some extra virgin olive oil. And we all know that olive oil is a healthy fat, right? A monounsaturated fat. It's good for keeping your arteries flexible. It is a healthy fat. So our soup starts with 1/3 of a cup of olive oil in the bottom of our pan. I'll put that in a minute. We also have onions and garlic, 2 alliums that are anti-inflammatory, so both very good for you. I've already chopped my onions to speed this up. This recipe calls for 2 onions. This is 1.5 onions. It depends on how big they are. So I've probably got about 3/4 of a cup of onions.
Chris, you can use any kind of onion, right? Does it have to be, a white onion, a red onion, or?
You could use, thank you, Amy. You could use any kind. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm having a really hard time in South Haven finding good onions. And we eat a lot of onions. So I feel like every bag I buy, I cut into them, and some of them are soft and some of them are, very sprouted, and some of them have mold on them. So I'm getting frustrated with the onion scene here. That's part of the reason why I chopped it up ahead of time, to make sure I had a good one. But yes, red, yellow, white, sweet, any kind of onion. Not green onions in this recipe because they won't puree very well for the very last step. So any kind of regular onion. So we've got the onions and garlic. We've got some red pepper flake. In this recipe, you can use Italian seasoning or dry basil, whichever one you want, whichever one you have. Italian seasoning is a combination of 3 or 4 spices, or you could use straight basil. We've got some tomato paste, we've got a can of whole tomatoes, whole peeled tomatoes. And that's basically what is the base for this soup. And then a couple of other special ingredients that add flavor. I've got some bay leaf. If you have bay leaves, that's great. If they add a lot of flavor to soups and stews. And if you don't, that's fine too. You could leave that out. And then I've got, I don't know if many of you save these, but I have a Parmesan cheese rind, which really gives soup a lot of extra flavor. So where did this come from? It comes from me using Parmesan cheese. The rind is hard. When I get to that point, I put it in the freezer, and I have a whole bag of them. And they're a really great flavor addition to soups and stews. And then we've just got some chicken broth, low sodium, and some salt and pepper.
Your Ira sits in.
You know,
Is somebody asking a question?
I got it. No. The best part about that is I don't want to grind my knuckles down with my Parmesan cheese when I get near the end. So I always have a little hunk left to try and save my skin from my cheese grater.
Absolutely. I know. Absolutely, Amy. So we're going to start with our step one, which is just to heat the olive oil in a pot. And then we're going to add the onions and garlic and get those cooking. So I'm going to hop back there. You're going to see me I'll turn the stove on. I'll add the olive oil, the onions and garlic. And then while that's going, we're going to start on some of our polls and questions that we've got today, Amy.
Awesome. Okay. I just spotlighted the other, your stove pan. So this is going to look a little wonky first. Because we'll see part of her here and part of her over here. But it looks pretty good, Chris. I think it's going to work out fine. I did want to mention that if you can't hear her, we do have closed captioning enabled. So you can turn that on and you can see what's happening. You can see the closed captioning. It's not 100%, great, but boy, it helps. It's a great addition to our classes. So we're really excited to be able to offer that.
Definitely. And before you go to the question, Amy, I'm going to add, the recipe says add your onions and garlic. I like to add the onions first. They're bigger and they take a little longer to cook. So my olive oil is heating over medium. I'm going to throw in the onions. I'm going to crush my garlic. I have a garlic press, but you could use garlic powder. It's 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder per 1 clove. You could use minced garlic. You could use garlic paste or pureed garlic, whatever you need to do. And Amy, I was thinking what I should get is the AirPods. So when I move, the sound follows me, right?
No. Well, you could. You might lose. They're not great on Zoom. I will tell you, they're not great on Zoom, which is why I still use the old corded kind.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
All right. So
okay.
Go ahead and ask your question. I'll go add the onions and garlic.
Okay, so first one we're going to ask, and if you're not familiar with polls, I'm going to put this little questions up on the screen. You're going to pick your answer and hit submit. It is about cheese. Do you like cheese? Do you love it? Do you like it? Yeah, it's okay. Do not like it, or it depends on the cheese. So this is always an interesting one when we ask these kind of questions, because this is, I love people's personal preferences on cheese. And I would have to put myself in a depends on the cheese category, which is funny because I do a lot of cooking. You think I would really enjoy my cheese, but not so much. All right, so it looks like everybody has answered. And I love your comment, Deb. You are correct. How could anybody not like cheese? I'm one of them. It's just, yeah. I'll tell you why in a minute. Let me end this poll, but end the poll, and it looks like most of your people love it or like it. And there is a little minority of us that are like, it's okay, or it depends upon the cheese. I don't like stringy cheese. It's a textural issue, not a taste issue. It's the way it pulls apart on pizza and things. Sorry. Okay, Miss Chris.
Okay, cool. That's a really good question. Yeah, I'm in the like it. It just depends on the cheese. I can't see the bottom of the poll results. Are you still sharing them?
No, I put him, I stop sharing.
Okay.
So, but
I still see them on my screen, but anyway,
okay.
There we go. Okay. What was the bottom question? Didn't like it at all?
No, that was depends upon the cheese.
Oh, okay. How many did we have for that?
2.
Very many.
3
2.
if you count me.
All right, perfect. So you can see my pot simmering over there. onions are cooking. I'm gonna head back over there. I'm gonna add the garlic. I'm gonna add the red pepper flakes. I'm gonna use Italian seasoning. I want to get a little oregano into this. We're gonna garnish later with basil. So I'm gonna do that right now, and I'll be right back. And I think can you hear me okay back here?
We can. You sound great.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So my onions are going. I am adding some garlic. I'm using my, I can show you over here. See?
Yes.
I'm using my nifty little 30-year-old garlic press. And I'm gonna put in a couple cloves. I love this garlic press. I got this as a shower present when I got married over 30 years ago.
Oh my goodness, it has stood the test of time, that one.
It has. We had a kitchen shower, and this was one of the gifts I got for our kitchen shower, and I love it.
Awesome. I do like a good garlic press too, and I like the ones now that come with the thing to clean it out so that you can get the gunk out.
Really easy.
Oh, good.
Okay.
And I like how you put the garlic in later so it doesn't burn. I think if you put the garlic in with the onions, it's burnt by the time the onions are somewhat done.
I agree. A lot of times recipes say to add it at the same time, but I never do. So I'm going to add our spices. Then we're going to come back.
Okay.
Some red pepper flake. And I like things spicy. So I'm adding a good amount. If you don't like spicy food, you don't have to add any red pepper flake. I'm adding in our Italian seasoning instead of dried basil, but you could use either. And
absolutely. Use what you have at home. We're big advocates of that here.
We're big on use what you have. So I've added my minced garlic, my red pepper flake, my Italian seasoning. Now I'm at step 3 of this recipe. Add the tomato paste, and then I'm going to cook that just a little bit and then really add everything else. So I'm at step 2. You'll see me add the tomato paste. I'm going to move it over here, and then I'm going to add the canned tomatoes, bay leaves, the Parmesan rind, salt, and pepper. So let's go back there and do that.
Awesome. Can you talk about why you're going to saute that tomato paste out?
So, Amy?
Yeah.
I cannot tell you exactly why, but I know that it really brings out the flavor, and many, many recipes call for you to saute it first. You saute it until it sort of breaks apart and browns a little bit. And I know that it really brings out the flavor. I'm not sure why though.
I can tell you why. It's called the Maillard, depending on how bad you want to butcher French reaction. And it just caramelizes the sugars in that tomato paste. And so it makes it a little sweeter and just brings out a little more flavor. That's all.
Oh, very good. I do it all the time. I've heard you say this on classes before. I wasn't 100% sure why, but it definitely makes things better. So we've got that in. Maybe just one more minute for that. Then I'll be gathering my other ingredients. I'll take them over to that side so I don't have to go back and forth. And Amy, why don't you do another question while I'm getting those?
Absolutely. Here we go. We'll go to the next one. So we are today, of course, doing tomato soup, but we would like to know what else you think, or what you think pairs best with your grilled cheese. Is it a salad? Is it soup? Or is it a fruit salad? And by salad, I think we mean like green salad, right, Chris? On this question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So salad, soup, or fruit salad? All righty. So this is a nice crowd, and they're voting pretty quickly here today. So salad, soup, or fruit salad? We're going to give it one more minute. And all right, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and share these results. And boy, mostly people think soup. Lucky for you, because that's what we're doing today. But a grilled cheese and salad does sound kind of good together, and a grilled cheese and fruit salad. I don't think there's a bad answer.
I agree 100%.
Okay.
I think
So
those are all good.
If for some reason you cannot see the poll and you're using either a tablet or an iPhone, you need to swipe over. Sometimes it shows up on a different screen. And if it doesn't show up, then the technical gremlins are back with us again. So bear with us. Sometimes Zoom gets a little goofy, but you should be able to see it right now. So, all right. And now I am going to stop sharing. So let's just do that.
Perfect.
Close that. Okay.
All right. So what were the results?
It was mostly grilled cheese and soup.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show you now what it looks like before I add the other ingredients. So if you can see in my pot that the tomatoes have really started to brown. Now they're nothing burned is on the bottom of this pot. That's what we're trying to avoid. So now we're going to add in our whole can of tomatoes with juices, and we're going to throw in this big old Parmesan, right? Mine is big. They don't have to be this big. That must have been a big chunk to begin with. And we're also going to throw in my 2 bay leaves, and we're going to throw in a little bit of salt. I'm just going to put a pinch, a 1/4 teaspoon, and some pepper. And I'm going to bring that to a simmer and then add my broth. So I'm going to mush up my tomatoes because they're whole with my spoon here, kind of breaking them apart. And you could use whatever device you have in your kitchen that works best. I can think of a few that would work better than this, but that's okay. We're going to stir it all
I'm usually
together.
the girl that grabs it with my hands beforehand and just squishes them with my hands.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So I'm smushing them with my wooden spoon. You can see them in there. And then I'm going to bring them to a simmer and I'm going to add my broth. So while that's coming up to a simmer, let's talk for a minute about broth. So we are using low sodium chicken broth today. You could use chicken stock, a little higher quality. You could use bone broth. That was my plan, but I thought I had it, but I didn't. I must have used it last week. You could use vegetable stock or vegetable broth. If you like the heartier flavor, you could even use beef broth in this recipe. So some kind of broth or stock is suggested. In a pinch, you could use water, although I think it's gonna be less flavorful if you do, but you could. You could use water and maybe add a few more spices. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's what we're gonna be doing as soon as it comes to a simmer, and then we're gonna start on the outside of our grilled cheese. Now, Amy, do you have any more questions for them?
I do have a question about someone is diabetic and carbs, proteins, and fats in this recipe. And I just checked the recipe. I don't see them on there. So I'm thinking we must have left off some of that somewhere.
No, we didn't leave it off. We do not have our analyzer program anymore, and we need to get it.
Oh,
so I can tell you, in looking at this recipe, there's going to be minimal grams of saturated fat. That's the kind of fat that clogs up your arteries. We are going to have fat because we have olive oil. We are going to have some carbs because we have tomatoes. But even though tomatoes are a fruit, the carbs in tomatoes are not comparable to the carbs in a banana. They're still a lower carb vegetable. So carb wise, it's definitely going to fit into a diabetic diet. Protein wise, we're not going to have much protein here because we don't really have any high protein ingredients. A little bit in the garnish, the Parmesan cheese, but that's it. But that's okay because we are going to have a sandwich that has 2 to 4 ounces of cheese on it, probably 2 to 3 ounces more like, which has protein. And we're going to have some high protein whole grain bread. So we're going to have a pretty balanced meal.
Fabulous and delicious to boot. Especially on a day like this. So, all right, let me get another question. Are you ready for another poll question? Or are you ready to move on?
I've got my tomatoes on a simmer, so I'm going to go ahead and add the broth, and then we'll do the question.
Okay, awesome.
So I'll just show you real quick here what it looks like. It's pretty chunky still, but as it cooks, it's going to break down. So I'm going to go ahead and add my broth.
It's just beautiful. The color of tomato soup is always just gorgeous and
pretty. And you can see if you're looking in the pot that my Parmesan rind is floating around in there. It's going to come out. It's not going to melt. And my bay leaves are floating around. they're gonna come out. They're not gonna melt or get ground up either. And we're gonna bring that back to a simmer. All right, Amy, I'm ready for another question.
All right, here we go. Whoops, gotta get my clicker in the right place. And all right, so this is going to prelude to what we're talking about next. So you want to know about your sweets. How do you feel about sweets? Specifically, what are your thoughts on adding something sweet to your grilled cheese, like slices of apple or pear or even a little honey? Does that taste great? Not sure, I haven't tried it. Or ew, don't mess with my grilled cheese. I took a little liberty with Isabel's answer on the third one and messed with it a little bit. But do you like something that tastes great? You think a little sweet does, or you're not sure because you haven't tried it? Or ew, don't mess with my grilled cheese. Okay, we've got, all right, everybody seems to have answered it. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. And boy, this is kind of a split crowd today, Chris. There is people that think that's a great idea, people that are kind of riding the fence, and then there's the ew, don't mess with my people. So right kind of up the middle pretty evenly.
Ah,
I know. Fun. One other thing I want to say about if you're not seeing the polls, you might have to upgrade your Zoom account. I forgot that Zoom did an upgrade like a couple of weeks ago. I kind of forgot about that. Here we are.
yeah, definitely. It's those upgrades that get us all the time. So yes, you'll definitely want to upgrade it. We like to keep things going with polls and things like that in this class. So again, if you're not seeing the polls, you can always chat. Amy will read them out loud and you can always chat your answer into her.
Absolutely.
Sound good, Amy?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So I moved my soup to a different burner because we're going to move on to our grilled cheese in a minute. But if you're following along, I am at step 4. I added the chicken broth, bringing it to a boil. Then I'm going to simmer it for 15 minutes while we're making the sandwich. So this is a good time for us to transition. So before we do, does anybody have any questions about any of the ingredients or anything that went into the soup thus far?
I don't see, but I do have a little comment about somebody says old-fashioned cooks say a little bit of sugar in savory and a little bit of savory in sweets. Balance, that's just kind of an old.
I like that. Did somebody put that in the chat?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also a little bit of acid. I like to add a little bit. I mean, this has plenty of acid because we're using tomatoes, but adding a little lemon juice or vinegar or even something like a little red wine can really perk up flavor too. So that was a good suggestion, whoever gave that suggestion.
That would be Deb. She's also a smusher of tomatoes like me.
So we're going to transition to talking about our sandwich. And then once I start to assemble, I'm going to have Amy. Amy's got a really fun game that is not in the polls for you to play. So we'll do that in a couple minutes. But let's talk about bread. So again, some people don't think a grilled cheese is a healthy sandwich, but it actually can be a very healthy sandwich, especially if you choose healthy ingredients. So today we are using 100% whole wheat bread. And I want to talk about this because it's very easy to get confused when you are looking at food labels because so many breads will say whole grain, but whole grain is good, yes, but it doesn't tell you how much of that bread is whole grain. So what you're buying and eating, thinking this might be like the healthiest bread, might only be like 5% whole grain and the rest refined white flour. So you want to look for a bread to keep it healthy that says 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain on it. It might not be 100% whole wheat, but it might be 100%, it might be 50% whole wheat and 50% whole oats, or 50% whole wheat and 50% whole grain brown rice. So you always want to look for that 100% on the label. Now, this is what we're using for our healthy grilled cheese. Is it always the best option? Not always, right? Because sometimes if we're using really delicate, mild flavored ingredients, maybe we're using a mild cheddar and apples in this grilled cheese. And whole wheat bread has a lot of taste to it, right? I mean, it does have a hearty taste. So whole wheat for nutrition. If you say, I don't like whole wheat, I don't want to use whole wheat, you can use another bread that is not whole wheat or whole grain. You're still going to get some healthy carbs, which are good for energy. You're still going to get some of the vitamins and minerals that most breads are fortified with. So remember that my plate tells us half of our grains should be whole. That means the other half cannot be whole. So if you really don't like whole wheat bread, don't get yanked about it. You can make your grilled cheese with white bread or potato bread or whatever bread you like, but try to make an effort to make at least half of the grain food you eat whole grain. So we are going to use whole wheat bread in our grilled cheese. That was my first nutrition tidbit. And Amy, I think now would be a good time to run that PowerPoint as I'm getting the other ingredients ready.
Fabulous. And just a comment, Chris and I have taught nutrition together for many, many years. And this is probably the most confusing part to people about about that they would be like, no, I eat whole wheat bread. Do you? But do you? Let's talk about that. So, all right. On that note, I'm going to open my PowerPoint here, get it ready to go. And then I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to talk about name that cheese. So everybody can see my screen, I hope. We're going to play a little game called Name That Cheese. Thank you again, Isabel, for doing this for me. I just so appreciate it. And here we go. So what is this cheese? Feel free to put your answers in the chat, and we'll see if anybody knows what this is. I think she gave you some easy ones to start. Don't think that this is going to be that way the whole time, though, people. So I see fresh mozzarella. Mozzarella, yeah, all right. Mozzarella, you guys got the hang of this one. You are correct. This is mozzarella cheese. And because Isabel is super great, she did these lovely little things from the Britannica website. Mozzarella is mild and smooth textured cheese. By the way, you can make it yourself. I've done it once. It was fun. It was a lot of work, and I like the fresh mozzarella at the store. It's just so much easier. That's all. And all right, number 2, what is this cheese?
Blue cheese.
I heard somebody say it. You are correct. It is blue cheese. I see the chat. Oh, could be gorgonzola. Yeah, you know, you are correct, Deb. It could very well be gorgonzola. It's hard to tell. So blue cheese may be soft and creamy or crumbly, either one. It has a sharp, piquant flavor. It is often quite salty, but not overly so, nor is it usually bitter. So this is one of those cheeses I don't like that everybody else loves and I just can't get past. All right, so what is this cheese, you smart audience? Oh boy, I see some cheddar, cheddar, cheddar. Yeah, you guys are correct. This is most definitely cheddar. And cheddar cheese is a hard cow's milk cheese. It is mellow, rich, and it becomes more intense with age, but it should not be bitter. I would beg that super sharp cheddar gets pushes up there on the bitter scale. Okay, here we go, Smarties. What is this cheese? This one I do like. It's one of the few I do like. Feta, feta, feta. Oh boy, this is a smart crowd today. You guys are correct. This is feta cheese. And fresh, white, soft, or semi-soft cheese is not cooked or pressed, but is cured briefly in a brine solution that adds a salty flavor to the sharp tang of the goat's or sheep's milk. So yeah, feta's just got a little bit of salty tang to it, and I think that's why I like it. Okay. What is this cheese? And don't worry, yeah, and don't worry about the spelling on this one. Yeah, you can feel free to shorten this one to Parm. You are correct. P-A-R-M works for me. I never get it right. I can't spell this or Caesar salad. So of all the things, All right, it is Parmesan cheese. And it is a hard and sharp with a rich, savory flavor. Grated Parm has more flavor than ungrated. So interesting. I don't know why that is. Maybe because you get more in a bite. I don't know. So what is this cheese? Okay, I will. I love this comment, and I as soon as we get done with this guessing, I will read that one. Oh, Edam. Edam. Okay. This one is actually Gouda. Now, there's a slight difference between Gouda and Edam. I don't think it's big enough for to be. I think that I will accept Edam as an answer because Gouda is semi-soft and has smooth textured interior of a pale ivory color. The flavors are bland and creamy, except for aged Gouda, which is dark gold in color, stronger and saltier in flavor and harder in texture. So very smart. What is this one? This one is also one that might be hard to spell. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of guesses. So I'm going to give Spain as a clue. Ah, Spain is the clue to this one. It is not Havarti. It is Gruyere. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not Spain. This is Swiss. Sorry. It looks just like the one I'm going to give you for Spain here shortly. Gruyere it is. And this one is a hard cheese with a brownish wrinkled natural rind. The interior is pale gold with pea-sized or slightly larger holes and a rich nutty flavor. It is similar to Emmentaler and other Swiss type cheeses, but firmer in texture with fewer holes and a little more oomph to it, a little more flavor. What is this cheese? This one is, I think people will guess this one. We shall see. I see Brie, Brie, and Brie. All right. Camembert, which is a little bit different. We're going to talk about that. Camembert is creamy, ivory colored interior and downy white surface, resembling that of Brie, but it's not Brie. It does result in that results from the Penicillium camemberti mold with which the curd is treated. The flavor varies from mild to strong as the cheese ripens. So I think if I am correct, Camembert is usually a goat's milk cheese, and so it's a little bit stronger because of that as well. Okay, here's the super duper hard one of the day. What is this? It is not a moon rock. It is not a geode. It is actually cheese. Anybody got any guesses on this one? All righty. This might be a stumper, Isabel. Mimolette cheese. So Mimolette cheese is a cow's milk cheese that is very hard in texture. It's thick and creamy, a little like fudge. The flavor is rich, buttery, and nutty. It is bright orange due to the addition of annatto during the cheese making process. And annatto is a seed that makes everything kind of red. It happens to make it orange here. Okay, here we are with the Spain answer. This is the Spanish cheese. Anybody thought of it yet? This is again one of the ones I do like. Manchego. So Manchego is a Spanish sheep's milk cheese that has PDO status, meaning it can only be produced in certain provinces within the region of La Mancha, south of Madrid, in the countries I can speak today, high central plateau. It is semi-soft, pale yellow in color, with a firm and supple texture, a pleasant grassy aroma, and a fruity, nutty, tangy, and sweet flavor. All right, you guys, I'm going to stop that share. Thank you very much, Isabel. That was good. And yes, Manchego is another one that's hard to spell.
That was really good. Great game, Isabel. Thanks for creating it. And a lot of cheeses on there that I've forgotten about, and some cheeses I've never eaten before. I've never had that last one. And I think there was another one I hadn't had. I can't remember which one it was.
The orange one I've never had.
The orange one. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The second to the last.
Yeah.
I've never, Mimolette or whatever. I've never had it.
Okay, we had a comment in the chat before you get starting that says, I have played Who Cut the Cheese before, but never, what is this cheese?
That's good. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started on our sandwich. So what makes this ultimate? So what makes it ultimate is we're going to add some sort of fancy add-ons, and we're going to do some a little fancy to the outside of the bread that maybe you've done before and maybe you haven't. So if you're working through the recipe, we're going to start at step 1 before we talk about the cheeses. So step 1 is to mix together butter or margarine. I'm going to talk about that. Some dried dill weed, some grated Parmesan, and a little bit of garlic salt. So let's talk about butter or margarine. So when you make grilled cheeses at home, I like to give it a good coating of butter. I'm not going to lie about that. Butter or margarine. This recipe says 2 tablespoons. So a tablespoon of fat is a significant amount of fat, but you could back it off to probably not a teaspoon. You're not going to get away with the teaspoon, but you might be able to get away with a teaspoon on each side. So 2 teaspoons. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix together basically a coating for the outside of the bread. But what I wanted to share with you today was something you can use instead of butter. So our recipe says softened butter or plant-based margarine. So I've got 2 products in front of me that look identical. One is 100% butter, a lot of saturated fat, which is, we know, is not good for our arteries. And the other one, which is slightly lighter in color, is a plant-based margarine. And this is the name of it. And I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's called Benecol. And if you have high cholesterol, or if you've been told you should watch your blood fats, this is something that you can use instead of butter, and it's what we're going to use today, because this word on here, plant stanols, that is a part of plants that can help lower your cholesterol. So if you're somebody that's working on lowering your cholesterol and you like to use butter or margarine, investing in a tub of this is a good idea. I will say it is twice the cost of like, I can't believe it's butter or some of those other plant-based breads. This tub was $4.96 at Meijer, or $4.98 or something like that. But if you're using it sparingly, it can last a while, and it's really good for helping keep your fat intake in check and helping keep your blood cholesterol down. So that's what we're going to use. So we've got 2 tablespoons of this plant-based margarine in here. We're going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of dry dill weed. You could also use fresh. I'm using dry today. I like dill, so I might bump that up to maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. So I'm going to put that on top of my margarine. And
I love dill, but I have never used it on a grilled cheese. I cannot wait for this.
Yes. And then we're going to add a little bit of garlic salt. So not much, just about an 1/8 teaspoon, just to give it a little extra flavor.
Are you using garlic salt or garlic powder?
I'm using garlic salt now. I'm
Okay.
using garlic salt. If you are really watching your sodium very closely, you could use garlic powder.
Okay.
Both will work. I'm using garlic salt today to get a little bit of that salty taste, which I like. Now I've got those 3 items. I got to find my Parmesan cheese. Just a minute.
That's okay. While you're looking, we have a comment in the chat I was going to read to you about. In the South, they use mayonnaise to coat the bread for a grilled cheese.
No, I know that. I have seen that before, and that would work too. Yeah, that would definitely work.
And then somebody has tomato envy, by the way, of your tomato that you have sitting in front of you, like how beautiful it is.
I know. I don't know if it's gonna taste good, but we'll see. Okay. So I'm adding about 2 teaspoons of Parmesan cheese to that mixture. So I've got my dill weed, I've got some Parmesan cheese, I've got that little bit of garlic salt, and I'm stirring this all up into my room temperature. That's the key. My room temperature spread. And this would be for 2 sandwiches. I think this would stretch for 3 sandwiches. So I've got it all mixed together. It's not beautiful, but it works.
We're going to cook it anyways.
Yep. And I'm going to start to spread that on just one side of one of my pieces of bread. So, and this is going to, this one thing that's nice about this fennel, it does spread really nicely. And I like to make sure that I'm giving it to the edges because I want to get it brown, as golden brown as I can. And the fat helps. So I've covered my one piece of bread. Now to my other piece of bread, I'm going to start to build my sandwich. So today I'm using basic old Colby Jack cheese. So you just had a beautiful PowerPoint with a million different kinds of cheese, right? Lots of cheeses will work in a grilled cheese. Colby Jack works great. Mild cheddar works great. The harder and sharper the cheddars get, the more the fat separates from the cheese, and it can make not as silky of a or creamy of a grilled cheese sandwich. So I'm using Colby Jack, which melts really well. You could use brie. You could use a softer Gouda. You could use a combination of goat cheese and blue cheese. You could use whatever you want. But the take home thing about cheese is there's not really one that's much healthier than the other. Swiss is a little lower in sodium. Some of the processed cheeses are a little bit lower in fat, but they're all about the same. And you're going to be getting calcium and vitamin D and protein out of them. Of course, if you choose a low fat cheese, and there's lots of them, Cabot makes several low fat cheeses that are pretty good. That will work too, but they don't melt quite as well. The reduced fat cheeses don't melt quite as well. So I'd rather use the real thing and control my portions versus using a lot of a lower fat cheese. That's just me. You can do whatever works for you. So I've already shredded up my cheese. And in your recipe, it says a half cup to a cup of grated cheese. That's for 2 sandwiches. I have a half cup of grated cheese here. So if you think about ounces, you might say to yourself, well, a half cup, that's 4 ounces of cheese, that's 2 ounces each. But it's not really, because when you grate cheese, it takes up much more space in the bowl. So I'm probably getting 1.5 ounces per sandwich. So I'm going to start with sprinkling my shredded cheese on the bottom. Now, one of the things people ask a lot of times when we talk about cheese is, can I use the prepackaged shredded cheddar cheese that's already shredded? You can, but it will not work as well because those cheeses often have stabilizers that help keep the shreds separate, and that can limit how well it all sticks together and melts. If you have shredded cheese, you can use shredded cheese. I've certainly done it. It just doesn't work as well. So I bought a block and I grated my own. I'm also adding some caramelized onions that I caramelized yesterday. Now, you don't have to caramelize your onions. I have 2 examples here. I have caramelized onions, this one, which is darker, and then I have some sauteed onions that I sauteed in 5 minutes. Caramelizing takes about 30 minutes. It's cooking at low and slow until all those natural sugars come out. And it has a really delicate, sweet taste. That's what I'm going to use, but you don't have to use that. And you don't even have to use these ingredients. I'm just showing you how I'm building my deluxe. So I've got I'm going to add in just some caramelized onions. And any questions thus far?
No, I think you're just on a roll. So
okay,
keep on rolling.
So I love onions, and these might look like they are really oily and buttery, but they are not. They have a little bit of olive oil when I caramelize them, and I always add a little bit of butter. And it's just the texture becomes really soft and silky. And you might look at it and say, those seem oily. They're too fatty, but they're really not. They barely have any fat in them at all. So I've got some caramelized onions. I'm going to add some tomato. And yes, this is a beautiful tomato. I hope it's good. I already washed it earlier today. And I'm just going to try to get a couple of thin slices out of this. I'm using a serrated knife because I want it to be very thin. Now that's my timer, which tells me my soup is almost ready. So that's good. Hang on, I'm gonna turn
All
it
right,
down.
awesome. And another thing, if you're like Chris is very good with a knife, so she can cut that roly thing on a cutting board. But feel free to cut that in half and put a flat side down to really work on getting that thinner.
Yes.
It's helpful. That's all. A little less dangerous.
Thank you, Amy. What Amy's talking about is like not to have this going on. You can just shave a little bit off the bottom, or get yourself a flat surface. So thanks for mentioning that. I'm very used to this knife.
Right.
So I'm only gonna put maybe 3 slices in my tomato because I don't want it to be super, or my sandwich, I don't want it to be super watery. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is bring your add-ins to room temperature before you make your grilled cheese. My onions, which were in the refrigerator, were cold. Some people keep tomatoes in the refrigerator. I don't. They were, but they could be cold. My pickles that I'm gonna add in a minute are kept in the refrigerator. They're cold. Bring them out an hour ahead of time and get them to room temperature because it's hard for the cheese to melt if you're using super cold ingredients. I also had my shredded cheese out about an hour ahead of time. So I've got my caramelized onions on top. I am going to just add a couple of these very thin slices of tomato. You can see I'm using my fingers, but that's okay because it's my sandwich. And then I'm gonna wedge inside a couple of dill sandwich pickles. Now, this is I shouldn't call it really a guilty pleasure, but it kind of is because pickles are not bad for you, right? But they do have quite a bit of salt. They're low calorie, yes, but they have quite a bit of salt. So I added 2 thin dill pickle spears that I patted dry with a couple of pieces of paper towel because I don't want a wet sandwich. So I've got that. And I'm going to put a little bit more of my cheese on top. And then this sandwich is going to be ready to grill. So a little bit more cheese because I want to save the rest of the cheese for my other sandwich. I'm going to put my butter side up and then I'm going to move to the back. I'm going to flip it in the pan and we're going to start it cooking while we work on finishing up our soup. So any questions thus far, Amy?
No, you're going to butter the other side of that bread when you flip it in the pan, right?
Yes.
Or is it
I'm going to
okay?
butter that's how I do it. Everybody
Me
does
too.
it different. I butter it once it hits the pan. So
Me
yes,
too.
this side does not have any butter on it. So I'm going to bring it back to the pan. I think Amy can spotlight me back there.
Yep, you're already there.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm going to turn my burner on about medium. I've got my window open so it's blowing. I'm going to flip my sandwich. I'm going to smush it down a little bit. You can see me doing that and picking out the extra cheese I don't want to burn. Turn down my soup and grab my butter.
It looks delicious. Pickles are my favorite food, and I have one every single day. Isn't it?
They're so good. And you can see that this butter is actually going pretty far. I've got quite a bit left.
Oh.
I would say with this 2 tablespoons, I've got enough for 3 sandwiches. So you could definitely, maybe 4 sandwiches. You could definitely back off. I'm trying to be healthy and use less fat. But I also know that this butter has some of those good plant stanols in it. So there we go.
Beautiful.
So I got my heat on medium. But this is a hot burn. So I used to always burn grilled cheeses when my kids were little. And they used to always say, let dad make the grilled cheese because I'm a multitasker. And my husband used to say to me, don't walk away from the pan. Stop walking away from the pan because they can cook really fast, right? And our stove has these power burners that also heat really fast. And it happens to be on a power burner. So I think I'm going to scoot it over and I'm going to bring my soup to the front here and we're going to run our immersion blender through the soup and see how that's doing. So
awesome.
Any more questions or polls, Amy?
Let's see if I have another poll question. I do have another poll question. And last but not least, we would love to know, is there a time of year you eat more grilled cheese? Yes, only during the cold months, or nope, all year round. Are you a cold weather grilled cheeser or an all year round? I'm pretty sure my kids eat a grilled cheese a day, I swear. They love cheese and they love bread. And so they crack me up with that. Even when I go to their homes, they're still making grilled cheese all the time. Okay, looks like everybody voted. Here we go. All right, so it looks like we have mostly year-rounders here. Everybody's a good grilled cheese year-round. Nobody's just judgy and only eats it in the winter. So not many, just a few. All right.
100% agree with that. It's a good quick meal, right? Definitely.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
We're getting ready to do our soup. So I'm getting my plate ready for my grilled cheese. I've got my big bowl ready for my soup. And I am going to hop back there and run my immersion blender through my soup. I'm going to check my grilled cheese first, though.
Awesome. Yeah, so check your grilled cheese, and then let's talk about an immersion blender.
Yes. So let me plug it in. Let me check my sandwich. And we will talk about these.
So if you don't have an immersion blender, you can certainly use a potato masher in this to kind of chunk it up a little bit and smush things down. It won't be as smooth, but it certainly works in a pinch. If you don't have one of those, they're not overly expensive anymore. I mean, you can get a good cheap one at Aldi for like $15, but
yes. And I will say mine was, I think, like 28. And what I like about it, a lot of hot soups, they say transfer to a blender. Well, that's always a mess. And it's hard because the blender doesn't always accommodate a full pot of soup, or the food processor is messy and hard to clean. So to me, this 28, 25 bucks, 15 is a really great investment. But as Amy said, you can use a potato masher. In fact, I was using a potato masher to smash up the potatoes or tomatoes. So
right.
You definitely can. So I've got one more thing to do before I blend. I'm going to hop back. I'm going to pull out that Parmesan rind and the 2 bay leaves. So let's see if we can. I think you guys can see me back here. Yes,
we can. Yeah. See if you can fish them out.
My sandwich. It's still doing good. Now I'm fishing around in here for my 1 bay leaf, my big old Parmesan rind, which is in here somewhere, which it keeps escaping me, and I know it's in here. I don't know how it's getting away from me. I'm gonna have to use a slotted spoon.
There you go. There's more than one way to fix that thing.
It's probably sticking to the bottom. I can feel it on the bottom.
Oh yeah.
There you go. You can see it came out just like that.
Just like it went
now
in.
It's giving out all of its flavor. And the last thing I want to find is my other bay leaf. And there he is.
Yeah, I don't usually recommend a blender for hot soup at all. I think it's just a burn, waiting to happen, I swear, from a safety standpoint.
So let's check our sandwich before we, yes, I have a really nice coating. And I will tell you that the Parmesan and the dill and the garlic in that coating smell fabulous. And they give it sort of a oomph that you just don't get out of regular grilled cheese. You get kind of a little toasty coating, and that extra bit of Parmesan on the outside is just really good. So let's blend. So back here, and my immersion blender is plugged in. I'm making a mess over here, but I want to make sure I don't burn it on the gas burner. So
and also make sure that you have that head down below the liquid, or you'll be spraying tomato soup everywhere.
Oh yeah, you can't see. Yes, because my grilled cheese should be on, my soup should be on this side, but I'm not going to move it now. But yes,
okay.
You can see I picked it up. You want that to be under.
Right.
And it's going to be noisy. So just for a minute.
Yeah, it only takes a couple of seconds, honestly, for it to do what it needs to do.
And Amy, if you need to mute me, you can. One thing I wanted to add is I like to sort of move it around a lot instead of just going around on the bottom. But as Amy said, do not bring it up out of the liquid or you're going to get sprayed.
Yes,
So-
you're going to be wearing tomato soup everywhere in her nice white stove and everything would be covered. I speak from experience on this one. Do not be like me and be distracted. Somebody talks to you, and when you turn to talk to them, you just pick it up. Focus on one thing at a time. I've done it more times than I care to count, but I do love my immersion blender. It was one of the first real, like I thought super fancy things I ever bought for my kitchen, and I think it's definitely worth it. Especially for soup. So, and Chris, it's funny, I can't hear that at all now that it's under the liquid. So you're good. We can't hear it at all.
What'd you say, Amy?
Couldn't hear it at all when it was under there. Once you got past that initial chunking. So.
All right. Okay. So my soup is smooth, pretty smooth. You can keep blending and blending and blending till you get every little bit done, or you can leave a few chunks in there, however you like. My cheese sandwich is going to be done in just a minute. So when I pull my soup out, I am going to garnish with I've got a little bit of green onion. You can use that if you want to. I also have some basil that's already chopped up that you can buy at the store. I tried to buy fresh basil. They didn't happen to have it at Meijer yesterday. This is fresh, but it doesn't look great, but that's what we're gonna use today. So let me scoop up my soup. Do you have any more questions while I'm scooping up the soup, Amy, to ask
I do
them?
not. No.
Okay, I'll be just a second.
I do not, but I will say that if you are any kind of a green thumb at all, you can usually keep a basil plant alive here in Michigan inside the house through the winter. Mine looks pretty raggedy, but it still has some fresh leaves on it. So, and I know this was one I bought at the Meijer and just plunked in some dirt and stuck it outside last summer. So it's hanging in there. And as soon as the weather gets nice again, I'll move him right back outside and he'll flourish then. So
Now you can see under here,
yeah.
I've got my soup ready. I'll bring that forward. And
Beautiful.
my sandwich is done because I can see it melting down the sides. So we've got our sandwich. I'll give a closer view over there.
Gorgeous.
I am going to carefully put it on my plate.
I cannot wait to try this one with that coating. It's so unique.
know,
I've
it's
never
gonna be
heard of
so
it. Yeah.
And I've got a really nice, easy, silky tomato soup. Not too thick, not too thin. The longer you let it simmer, the thicker it's gonna get. So I am just gonna put on the top of my soup a little bit of extra Parmesan, because why not? A little sprinkle of basil, and potentially just a few chopped up green onions if you like, not mandatory. And let's cut that sandwich. And I have a beautiful pickle and cheddar and caramelized onion grilled cheese. And it's melted just right. And it's cooked just right. Brown on both sides, has a nice crispy coating, and a little bit of extra flavor with that dill and garlic, salt, and Parmesan. And then just a really nice, easy soup to go with it that you can make in 30 minutes or less.
Yeah, beautiful and healthy. All right, great. Well, we are right up against the time here. Is it delicious? Yeah. But before we go today, I wanted to remind everybody that that Bronson does have other classes they do besides just the ones with us. And they have tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. a community education class, and it's entitled Cereal, More Than Breakfast. So if anybody would be interested in attending that, reply to my email and I'll make sure you get registered for it. And we'll get you in that class tomorrow morning so you can cook with Isabel, I do believe, in the morning, right? Or is that you, Chris?
Isabel, she's not cooking, but she's talking about lots of other ways to use cereal.
Yeah. Isabel's giving you tips and tricks on other ways to use cereal, which is fabulous. So,
and I hope you try this sandwich. I hope you join us again on your recipe. There are 8 different combinations that you can put on your grilled cheeses. So try them out. I hope you learned something and I hope to see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you. On behalf of
Thank you.
the Campus for Creative Aging and Region 4 Area Agency on Aging, we are so happy you joined us, and we hope that you join us again very soon. Thank you.